The European Commission has created a double standard in managing the European financial crisis. The Commission's contradictory positions toward Hungary and Spain this week have exposed the center of gravity of the European financial crisis this year. Not only are questions being raised about the enforceability of these austerity measures, but doubts will now rise over the credibility of the austerity enforcers themselves. It's imperative for the EU Commission to show that it's serious about keeping European states in line with their budget deficit targets. The irony is that the EU Commission knows that the majority of the states have no choice but to continue violating the deficit rules in order to avoid economic contagion on the continent. Hungary, therefore, has been put in the spotlight. While Hungary has a poor track record of budget management, it's by far not the only nor the worst offender. The EU Commission is therefore trying to use Hungary to set a precedent by placing a freeze on EU structural funding for Hungary in 2013. In addition to demands on the budget deficit, the EU Commission is demanding that Hungary retract recently passed controversial laws that would restrict central bank and media freedoms in the country. So Hungary's a perfect country to make an example of. It's not in the Eurozone, so it poses less risk to the core if it defaults. Its deficit problems are more manageable than most. It has already aggravated a number of lenders and governments, especially Austria, for its unorthodox handling of foreign currency-denominated loans. And finally, its leader, Viktor Orban, is portrayed as an increasingly authoritarian, non-European figure. Spain, however, is a different story. Spain is running a massive deficit, social tensions are rising, and the economic outlook is so bleak in Spain that it's highly unlikely that the country will meet its deficit target for 2013. Unlike Hungary, Spain has an economy that's the fifth largest in Europe, and it has a banking sector that is highly integrated into the wider European financial system. In other words, Spain is a country critical to the core of Europe. It is not expendable. So, when Spain announced last week that it would unilaterally increase its budget deficit target regardless of what the EU Commission says, the EU Commission could not respond with sanctions like it did with Hungary. Instead, in order to prevent Spain from sliding deeper into recession and exacerbating the European-wide crisis, the EU Commission ended up compromising and agreed to allow Spain to run a higher deficit than what was originally demanded, albeit lower than what Spain wanted. As the economic crisis spreads throughout Europe, the credibility of the European Commission will be questioned many more times. The question of credibility is a familiar one for EU institutions. Ironically, it was France and Germany who were the first to violate the Stability and Growth Pact, which established the deficit rules that today are defended so strongly by exactly those two countries. The European crisis has spread from the periphery of Europe to its core. As a consequence, countries that were most vocal when it came to pushing for more austerity measures in countries that are currently under bailout now have to show that they can lead by example. Germany and the Netherlands, for example, are 2 out of the remaining 4 AAA-rated countries in the Eurozone. The difficulties that these 2 core countries are facing, in particular, in following the austerity path that they set out for other countries shows that it's highly likely that they will also be among the deficit rules violators in the future. It's difficult to see the EU Commission bringing itself to punishing core Eurozone members for the sake of its own credibility in managing this crisis. But if you look at Spain as just one of what will likely be many examples of this problem, the core European austerity enforcers are facing a serious credibility dilemma in the months ahead.